and her a choice in a lot of ways that a lot of people didn't have.
There was a time Warren was getting criticized that here was this very, very rich man who was getting richer every year and really wasn't giving a lot of money away. And there was terrific criticism by some people, which Warren never said anything about.
The biggest thing in making money is time. You don't have to be particularly smart, you just have to be patient. Susie didn't want to wait as much as I did, but she never quite appreciated compounding like I did.
That is a disagreement we have. I run a foundation now. I think we should be giving more money away. But I understand why we don't, because it's business. To me, the crux of it is that it wasn't the money itself. You can see that in the way he lives. I mean, he doesn't buy huge paintings or build big houses or anything like that. It's all mental with him. And the money is his scorecard. And he used to say to me, everybody can read what I read. It's a level playing field. And he loves that because he's competitive. And he's sitting there all by himself in his office reading these things that everybody else can read. But he loves the idea that he's going to win.
I'll tell you how you do it. Have you ever seen a juggler juggle 25 milk bottles? How did he ever get to do that? The answer is he started with 1 bottle, then 2, then 3, and just kept doing it, and pretty soon he was at 25. And that's the way we did it. So basically, we started out with cash and ended up buying a bunch of businesses, including insurance companies.
Insurance is in itself a profitable business, but it has the additional advantage of creating something that's called float. And float is the money that hangs around Berkshire while a claim is waiting to be paid. And Warren turned out to have an extraordinary ability to use the money thrown off by the float to buy companies that fed the growth of Berkshire.
In 1983, Mrs. B cashed in on her business by selling control for $55 million to a company owned by investor Warren Buffett.
Warren was quite an expert about newspapers. He got interested in the Post because he recognized it as a greatly undervalued company.
He had to write me a letter. Dear Mrs. Graham, I've just bought 5% of your company, and I mean you no harm. And I think it's a great company. I know it's Graham owned and Graham run, and that's fine with me. And I thought, whoa, this guy's really terrific. He used to come to board meetings with about 20 annual reports. And he would take me through these annual reports. I mean, it was like going to business school with Warren Buffett.
Kay Graham did introduce Warren to the world of Washington, entirely different group than he had ever dealt with before.
It was clear that working with Kay gave him a different kind of confidence, and he was the star.
Everyone wants to hear what Warren Buffett has to say.
The Oracle of Omaha, building his image and having some fun.
Berkshire shares have increased more than 2,000% in value, one of the largest market capitalizations in the world, and it could grow a lot larger since Warren Buffett shows no sign of slowing down.
So how did he do it? By investing in what he knows and understands. Good old-fashioned American brands like Coca-Cola, Fruit of the Loom, and Dairy Queen.
What inspired you?
This inspired me.
Find what you like. Is that what
Yeah, absolutely. Today, the Coca-Cola Company will sell almost 2 billion 8-ounce servings of one form or another of Coca-Cola products. Now, if you get an extra penny a day, a penny a serving, that's $20 million a day. That's $7.3 billion a year from 1 penny more. When you own Coca-Cola, you own a little piece of the minds of billions and billions of people. That is really good.
Who's got the most $100 bills these days? Well, his name is Warren Buffett in this country, and he has just displaced his friend Bill Gates as the richest businessman in the world.
the purpose of Wednesday's meeting was to discuss Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway's plan to purchase railroad giant Burlington Northern. Valued at $26 billion, this would be Buffett's largest acquisition ever.
He's created Berkshire from virtually nothing into hundreds of billions of dollars of market cap. Nobody else has a record like that.
He wanted to have an outstanding reputation, that he never really upset the apple cart when he bought a business, that he kept the management in place. He was establishing a reputation that paid off later in life. It's been building and building ever since I've known him.
It takes 20 years to build a reputation, and it takes 5 minutes to lose it.
When Warren made his investment in Solomon, I was one of the people, along with many, many others, who were quite amazed, because he had taken a very critical tone in talking about investment bankers and about their greed. And here he was investing in one, Salomon Brothers, that was known to be a member of the club.
Warren and Charlie went on the board, and Charlie couldn't stand what was going on there and didn't like the culture at all. And shortly after they got involved, the thing exploded.
In 1991, on a terrible day in August, I got a call, and the two top officers of Solomon were on the other end, and they said that you know, we had a problem.
This is NBC Nightly News.
Good evening. It is the kind of scandal that rocks Wall Street and raises questions about the integrity of our financial institutions.
With the giant securities firm of Salomon Brothers under investigation for improper trading of treasury bonds.
Solomon admitted it exceeded the limits of trading in government bonds, once by buying bonds in the name of a customer who didn't even know about the deal.
Salomon Brothers is under investigation by the Treasury Department, the Federal Reserve, the SEC, and the Justice Department. But more important than the fate of the firm itself is the impact their actions could have on the public trust and on the credibility of the American market worldwide.
The company owed $150 billion. It owed more money than any other private company in the United States at the time. And that night, I met with the man that ran the Federal Reserve of New York, who was the sheriff, in effect. And I said, you know, I've never really owed very much money before. I said, I've got a little mortgage on a house, but $150 billion is a little staggering. And I was hoping he would say, well, don't worry, Warren, we'll give you a few weeks to breathe. And he said to me, prepare for any eventuality.
Earlier today, the U.S. Treasury Department announced that it had suspended Salomon Brothers from participating in the auction of new issues.
It was one more jolt for a scandal-scarred Wall Street.
The Fed was in effect saying, you're an evil force, and we don't want you trading our bonds. It was a huge turning point for Warren. And he believed that at that particular point, his reputation was on the line.
Warren had 24 hours to make up his mind as whether he was going to go forward or just bow out. And I think at that point, Salomon Brothers could have gone into bankruptcy. And Warren stepped up and took responsibility.
Okay, I'm Warren Buffett. I was elected interim chairman of Solomon Inc. A few hours ago at a board of directors meeting.
Why was it necessary for you to step in, and what is your mandate of leadership?
I think that it was necessary to step in because I would do whatever was needed to dig out any bit of information about what's happened in the past, and I would do everything I could to make sure that things are exactly right in the future.
Mr. Buffett, are you satisfied that the worst?
I had to convince the Treasury that what was done in the past was awful and stupid, and they had every right to be furious at us. But this firm employed 8,000 people, and it was going to go out of business unless they let us continue, basically.
Warren believed that there was a too big to fail scenario. The term was not used then, but he believed that Solomon was too big to fail. And if Solomon went down, it would take other important parts of Wall Street with it.
We had this death knell from the Treasury, so I called the Treasury. Nick Brady was the secretary. You know, I'm pleading for my life, and I'm sure my voice was cracking and everything else. I said, Nick, this is the most important day of my life. And that I really did feel that it was going to be a colossal disaster. He wasn't sure I was right at all. In fact, he probably thought I was wrong, but he knew that I felt what I was saying. So the Treasury modified its order, and in effect, of course, it was quite an endorsement. It was huge.
It saved Solomon. Nick Brady went with Warren because he trusted him. It shows how having a good reputation is really helpful in life.
I thank you for the opportunity to appear before this subcommittee. I would like to start by apologizing for the acts that have brought us here. The nation has a right to expect its rules and laws to be obeyed. But I also have asked every Solomon employee to be his or her own compliance officer. After they first obey all rules, I then want employees to ask themselves whether they are willing to have any contemplated act appear the next day on the front page of their local paper, to be read by their spouses, children, and friends. If they follow this test, they need not fear my other message to them. Lose money for the firm, and I will be understanding. Lose a shred of reputation for the firm, and I will be ruthless. I welcome your questions.
It's been 50 years since I formally took control of Berkshire Hathaway, and step by step, we've created something that is kind of what I dreamt we might create over time, but it took a lot of time to do it. It never seemed like we were making that much progress on any one day, but compound interest works.
When you think back 50 years ago when you founded this company, did you ever imagine it would be the 5th largest company in the world?
No, I didn't. But if I was thinking about it, I wouldn't have thought in terms of being the 5th, or the 4th, or the 3rd.
You would have wanted number 1.
Well, I mean, if you're going to dream, you might as well dream.
Well, a Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting is partly a fun festival. It's sort of a Mardi Gras for people that come every year. It's a chance for us to have a lot of fun and meet the people that have entrusted us with their money.
Well, we used to have just 30 people in a cafeteria, and now we have this huge public spectacle. Celebration is part of making a group of people work well together. It's a celebration.
We are glad you're here at our meeting. Be sure to check out our wares. We'll sell you C's candy and dilly bars and insurance for all of your cars, for it's buy all you see at the Berkshire Show.
He truly loves to do what he does. I think investors who own Berkshire Hathaway, they see themselves as a part of a community. There are more long-term holders of Berkshire than any company. People consider it a religion.
They don't buy it with the idea they're going to sell it next week. I think most of them buy it with the intent of holding it for their lifetime, just like they'd buy a farm or buy an apartment house. At Berkshire, everybody gets the same information from the comprehensive annual report. We don't meet with the analysts
I'm not interested in what an analyst thinks about Berkshire. I'm interested in what the owners of Berkshire think about Berkshire.
He came out of a private partnership where people he knew were trusting him. And he had his relatives in the partnership, and they were not rich. And as it got bigger, started treating everybody else the way he treated his relatives.
In terms of our feeling toward the people who are shareholders, we regard them as our partners. They're not some faceless group of people. And that's why at the annual meeting, I love seeing 40,000 of them. It gives real meaning to what we're doing every day.
Let's try. If you knew Susie like I know Susie,
we just have a lot of love and respect for each other, and that's never changed. I don't go to most things in Omaha because I think Astrid lives there with him, and that's for her to do. And then we do all kinds of things.
Strange as it may seem to people, I always think, who cares? If it's working between the people who are directly involved, who cares what anyone thinks? And my mother and Astrid were very close. They really, really loved each other. And I think that my mother was glad that she was there because she loved my dad. She wanted him taken care of and happy, and there's no one better than Astrid. I mean, she loves my dad. She wouldn't care if he had 1 cent.
Well, Astrid has lived with me for a long time. She's done wonders for me. It worked well, but I don't think it'll work for lots of other people necessarily. Susie and I loved each other, and we admired each other, and we were totally in sync with what the other was doing, but we were two different individuals.
The first time Warren came out to San Francisco, we took a walk and he looked around, and he's not very visual. He was looking around and he said, this is your city. I am so drawn to color and light and form and nature that he thought it was a good place for me.
Over the years, I've developed a better understanding of human nature. I can learn a lot about investments out of a book, but